Just hours after he left for work, George Altador became concerned when no one answered the phone at his home. What police would find inside the home, no one could imagine. 29-year-old Maria Altador was lying in a pool of blood. Also dead, her mother and the couple's 2 small children, brutally murdered.
Have you ever had one this bad?
No. None of our cases are easy, but this one takes it to a all-new low.
Captive of my own thoughts, battles I have not fought, catch the light.
Tanya and I are here in Miramar, Florida to investigate one of the most horrific and heartbreaking cases we've ever worked on. The 24-year-old murders of Mommy Marie Altador, her mom Teresa, her 2-year-old daughter, and her 6-week-old daughter. She's 29 years old, and her mom is here from Haiti visiting her, who's 60 years old. And then those 2 babies.
3 generations, all wiped out.
Marie was a Haitian immigrant who was very devoted to her family. On April the 30th, 1997, her husband George returned home from work to find Marie and her mom Teresa both fatally shot and beaten with a hammer, along with his 2 babies dead from blunt force trauma. Within that very gruesome scene, a big clue was left behind. And then we have that note on the wall. They stole my $100,000.
Yeah.
Drug money, right?
Who's gonna take the time to do that?
Yeah, why even write on the wall?
It's not often a killer leaves a note, so there's clearly a purpose behind it. But was it actually written by drug dealers or someone else trying to throw off investigators?
Using a hammer is so much more personal and violent and vicious than a gun or a knife.
Right.
Cracking a 6-week-old baby skull. And a 2-year-old baby skull that's hiding with their dollies behind a couch. Who could do that?
There could not be any more vulnerable victims.
It's a monster.
Exactly.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
I've chosen cold cases from across the country and teamed up with the best detectives to solve them. We're more determined than ever to bring justice to these victims.
Morning.
Hello, good morning.
How are you? Hi, Tanya Ryder.
I'm Jonathan Zara.
Danny Smith.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Well, we read it all, we studied it all. We want to do whatever we can to help y'all.
Thank you very much. We're very happy to have you guys.
Absolutely.
There's not a more horrible case than this.
It's really weighed heavily on the hearts of residents, family, obviously, and many of the officers that were here at the time and have kind of caught up with it over time.
Absolutely.
Y'all ready to get to work?
Let's go.
I think we got a lot to do.
Yeah.
This case will stick with me for the rest of my life. Nobody deserves to die like that, okay? Especially the 2 kids. And there's nothing I want more than to solve this and bring justice for the victims.
Okay, let's start off with putting our victims up on the wall. Okay, let's start with the baby. The baby was how old, guys?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
And her name?
Sabrina. Yeah.
And then we have her older sister.
Samantha.
Who was how old?
2 years old.
2. And then we have Marie.
Yes.
Last name Altador.
Altador.
And her nickname was Mommy, right?
Yes.
Who was how old when this happened?
29.
Okay, and then we have Teresa Laverne, and Teresa was 60.
Teresa is Marie Altador's mom. She lives in Haiti. She offered to come to Miramar and help her with their new baby.
Who's in this picture with our mother-in-law? Marie, her mom, Teresa.
George Altador.
And George.
Correct.
It's horrible.
Sabrina, at 6 weeks old, she would be 24 now, presumably in her career, maybe married, maybe kids of her own, and nobody in her family got a chance to experience any of that. And that goes for Samantha and Marie also, and Miss Laverne. It's 3 generations. We owe the family a resolution to this case.
April 30th, 1997. Tell us how it all began, Danny.
The husband, George Altador, left his house at 7 a.m., got to work. He tried to reach Marie numerous times throughout the day. He was unable to. He contacts his brother-in-law, says, can you run by my house? I'm starting to get worried. Brother-in-law went to the Altador residence, found 3 generations slain. Marie and her mom were both shot and savagely beaten with a blunt force object. The children were killed by a hammer or a hammer-like object.
We think that our murder weapon is a revolver.
We do.
And how many shots are fired?
5.
Okay, so let's break down the crime scene.
The front door was unlocked. There's no signs of forced entry. The instrument was not left. There was no firearm left on scene. There were no casings anywhere throughout the house. In the area where Sabrina and Samantha were found, there was writing on the wall. It read, I want my 100,000 drug money. They stole my drugs.
So that's your single biggest clue then, that writing on the wall?
Absolutely.
Investigators didn't find any evidence of drugs or drug activity, which raises the possibility that the message was actually written just to divert the attention away from the true killer. So the investigators began looking at the person closest to the victims.
The handwriting had been looked at twice. They actually had the husband, George, write the same phrase over and over and over again.
And so far, your handwriting experts say just inconclusive?
Inconclusive,
okay.
Times 2.
Times 2. So we're going to send off George's handwriting to the new handwriting expert to see what he says.
Very, very, very curious to see how that goes.
Yeah, I agree.
So talking over here, starting on our suspect board. Let's put up here George.
George, at the time, I believe he was 33. He's from Haiti.
So let's start with the big picture, the marriage, the relationship between George and Marie. What evidence do we have that they had any trouble in that marriage?
None.
None. Nobody's talking about divorce.
I think Marie normally took pride in keeping her personal life private.
Which is pretty common in the Haitian community. We don't know of any marital issues between George and Marie, and it's crazy to think that a father could do that to his own babies. But if George is a monster, then we're going to need to find a motive. Okay, so let's break down the person George Altador is. So what do we have that goes toward being able to do that?
The first wife.
What'd she tell y'all?
His jealousy.
Yeah. She was also very afraid of him.
Yes.
That's when he pointed the gun at her.
The exact quote of what she said that came from George was, quotes, if I kill you, nobody would know.
Nobody would know.
During the initial investigation, George's ex-wife told police that years before he had threatened her at gunpoint, though George claimed he never owned a gun. This shows not only his temper, but maybe his mindset. Maybe he thinks he's clever enough to outsmart police.
What about the number of calls once he starts checking on them? Do we think those are odd?
That to me is a little extreme.
Okay.
Yeah, like it escalated really quickly.
According to phone records, George called home 16 times trying to get a hold of Marie that day. Though on other days, he didn't seem nearly as persistent when he couldn't get a hold of her. So was he sincerely concerned or just trying to appear that he was?
Okay, let's put up here drug-related random intruder. So the note on the wall, message on the wall.
Message on the wall.
Because that's what it was meant to be. It was meant to be a message, right?
But to who?
It was meant to be a message to the owner of the house. Ha, 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 look what I did to you because you owe me $100,000. Was there ever any evidence that George or anybody in that family was ever involved with drugs?
No, this is just a very normal, home.
Honest.
Okay, now let's talk about that phone call at
7:09.
Marie, question mark.
The call did originate from their landline, and it went to a relative in Maryland, and we confirmed that with them.
What do we do with that?
That's the question, Kelly.
We don't know when the murders occurred, but the police department does believe that Marie's godmother received a call from the house at 7:09 that morning. The thing is, George's co-workers confirmed way back then that George got to work on time at 7:30 that morning. There's no way that George could have killed his whole family after that phone call at 7:09 and still made it to work on time. And that brings us back to the possibility of an unknown suspect. Why do you need to kill a baby that can't even speak, or a 2-year-old?
That's senseless. There's no reason for it.
Why even use the hammer? If you're already going there with a gun, Shoot everybody and be done with it.
I see the hammer as overkill rage.
We have so many unanswered questions. Was this revenge? Was this staged? Could it have been more than one person? And how could anybody do something this horrible?
Are we in a dream? Am I gonna wake up just to see that you're gone? Gone.
Do you have any other cases nearly as sad as this one?
No, nothing that really even comes close to this. I've investigated this case and spoke with the family for about half of my career. We have grown close over the years. So yeah, I mean, you can't help but to say it's personal.
Hello, ladies.
This is that homicide, that violent crime that I cannot shake. This is my adopted Haitian family.
I like that.
Yep.
Can you tell us what Marie was like? Hey, what'd she like to do?
She was very elegant. She's always encouraged people to go to school.
Even though she was shy, but she has a great sense of humor. Yeah, always trying to make people laugh.
We grew up like sisters. I think that all of our cousins, we have a big family, but we really knew each other very well.
And how about your mom? What was she like?
Mommy was a seamstress. She sewed nice clothes. She enjoyed cooking and have the family all together.
Were y'all able to visit enough to get to know Samantha? She was only 2.
Samantha, she was lovely.
When I think about my mom, her caring mother, my sister, children who die so brutally like this, I just hope that one day we know what happened. It is hard.
I remember the funeral. Even though, I was in shock, and I'm still in shock. My mom was at the end. My sister was in the middle, and Samantha was on the left side. And then someone stood in front of my sister, and they said, why do they have to bury her with the doll in her hand, in her arm? And then someone else said, no, this is not a doll. This is the... Sabrina was, in her Christian dress. In her arm. It was not 4 caskets, it was 3. So...
Listening to this family talk about how horribly devastating this has been to them, what do you say to them? Who could possibly say anything that's going to make them feel any better? In those days around the funeral, was there ever a time where George said to you from his mouth what he thinks happened? Who could have done this?
He never talked to us.
Never? It's your mother and your sister and your nieces.
That's right.
And he's never, out of his mouth, tried to tell you anything?
No.
He never talked to us. It's like we're stranger.
It's like nothing happened.
And to this day, all these years later?
We never heard.
Never.
Nothing?
Nothing whatsoever.
That's crazy,
It is.
We're still in shock. There has to be justice.
Our handwriting expert is ready to give us his findings. You want to call him?
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Grant, it's Danny Smith from the Miramar Police Department. So how are we looking?
Okay, so let me go over basically what I've done.
In 1997, Marie Altador, her mom Teresa, and her babies were brutally murdered. The message on the wall implied that it was drug-related, but investigators have always suspected that maybe it was written by her husband, George. We've asked our handwriting expert to compare the message on the wall to old handwriting samples given by George. If George is the author of that note, it proves he was involved.
All right, so having the question entry on the wall, generally speaking, the letter connections, the speed, the fluency of the writing, I'm not ruling out the possibility there's some sort of disguise in there, but not much. I turned my attention then to the writings of Mr. Altador to formulate a conclusion with respect to the habits of this particular writer. In doing so, I found a number of differences, not only in letter formations, letter combinations, letter connections, and introductory strokes of some of the letters, to the point where I believe that George Altador did not write the entries on the wall.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. That's not what we thought you were going to tell us, but we appreciate it.
Yes, you're very welcome.
If we could have matched the handwriting on that wall to George, it would have gone a long way to solving this case. But if George didn't write the note on the wall, then who did? I think you're really going to like Dr. Paneri. She's a medical examiner from back home in Texas. And then Chris Robinson, he's from Georgia, and he's like a firearms ballistics guy. We don't know what to do with that handwriting on the wall, but we do want to look at all the other clues left at the house. So happy to see y'all.
Yes, happy to be here.
Dr. Catherine Paneri and Chris Robinson are both here to help us re-examine the forensic evidence and recreate the crime scene. Dr. Paneri re-examined all of the wounds on each victim to maybe help us figure out the order of the attack, which might help tell us more about the killer.
This is one of the most disturbing cases I've seen in my career, very haunting. This is in the top 5 worst cases I've been involved in.
How many cases have you seen?
Oh,
in your
thousands.
whole career?
Thousands.
Thousands. And this is in the top 5?
This is in the top 5.
Damn.
Wow.
There's a lot going on here. It's a quadruple homicide with a lot of different injuries. The grandmother, Tricia, she's got extensive blunt trauma of her head. There's 23 described blunt force injuries on multiple sides of her head. So she is moving, turning. Some of the injuries actually appear patterned, which tells me a little bit about the weapon that was used to inflict it. I think the most likely thing would be a hammer. The hammer has the perfect edges and surfaces to create all of the wounds that she had. Additionally, she has a contact or near contact gunshot wound to the back of her head. One thing that you can tell from this injury is that it came after the blunt trauma because of the fracture patterns. A fracture line can't cross a pre-existing fracture line.
Fracture patterns can help determine the order of an attack. In Teresa's case, we can tell that she was first struck by a blunt object, which produced a crescent-shaped fracture in her skull. Then she was shot, causing a new fracture, which spread outward until it terminated on the earlier break. That wouldn't happen if the gunshot was first.
The mother, Maria, has 5 gunshot wounds, one of which is a re-entry from another wound. So she's shot here and turns and gets shot there, and then either falls or collapses, and then she's shot in the head and the back. But then she also has blunt trauma, and there's about 19 described blunt injuries to the head and face. Most of these wounds are on the left side of her face and head, which is kind of how she fell. In my opinion, she was down on the ground when these blows to the head were sustained. She's not moving around to sustain injuries on all surfaces like the grandmother was.
It seems crazy that 2 weapons were used, especially when you consider that Marie had already suffered fatal wounds. Is it possible that we're looking at 2 killers, or is it just one trying to send a message? Is it someone with a lot of rage? Whatever the case, it's clearly overkill.
Samantha, the 2-year-old, has approximately 22 blunt force injuries of the head and face. And Sabrina, who's not even 6 weeks old, she's got 6 injuries of her face.
I was counting up your number of hammer strikes on all 4 victims. It's exactly 70. I mean, think about that. Think about that. You talk about it. It's horrible. The whole case is horrible.
It takes a special kind of evil.
It's going to be an interesting discussion today of going back to the house.
Yeah, this is going to be one that stays with me for a while.
In attempting to recreate a crime scene, especially when you're dealing with 4 victims, being able to go to the actual place where it happened is crucial.
Looks a lot smaller than the pictures, doesn't it?
The Altador home has been remodeled since then, but coming here today can still give us an invaluable look at what happened that day.
Orient us, where are we and what's going on here?
All right, well, you come in the front door, you've got the bassinet there. So we've got Sabrina. Kitchen left, we've got Teresa, Miss Laverne, and then to the right, we've got couches situated in essentially the same manner where we've got Samantha.
According to old statements, Marie was very safety conscious. Marie always locked her doors, and there was no sign of forced entry. She definitely would not open the door for a total stranger. So it's odd that Marie and Teresa were going about their regular household duties, and they didn't seem to know that there was any threat until it was too late.
What do y'all say we go to the kitchen and then start going through your thoughts?
Okay.
So in our kitchen, where is Teresa standing when everything happens?
The sink's here, and the bowl
is right there,
which is really peculiar.
And guys, there were pots and pans with dinner-type food on the stove, right?
Yes, I think
so. And when
she
falls, is she kind of like this? Just so
she kind of falls toward that direction.
Okay, so I'll be Teresa. Chris, what's going to happen first? I'm over here with my bowl, doing my thing.
Okay, so I come in.
I turn around. I still got my bowl in my hand.
Okay.
There you are, whoever you are.
I strike her.
As hard as you can, right?
Yes.
So she falls just like this?
Yes, then she falls down, and then I give her the other 22 strikes because I can clearly see the blood spatter emanating all over the pantry doors here. I'm gonna have to go to the side because I have the blood spatter going out across the kitchen, out into the living room, 10 to 12 feet.
A lot of rage, overkill.
I have to get down and dirty. Then I pull out the gun just to make sure, and I shoot her right in the back of the head. And then Marie comes from the back because she hears
Well, where's she coming from?
She's coming from where I am right here.
Oh, this wall wasn't here.
She came from the back. Then he shoots her in the left shoulder. And then, see, she's going to turn, and then I shoot her again.
And I'm turning to get away, and I make it around the china hutch is here, and then fall there.
She's going to fall on the ground.
That's on the ground.
And then, then he gives one to the back. And then one right to the head. And then I start to hit. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have the spatter coming up the blinds, across the floor. 5, 6, 7, 19 strikes.
That's a lot different than just
forever.
talking about it.
Sure.
Marie's gunshot wounds were fatal, but her killer then struck her 19 more times with a hammer. This just screams of someone filled with rage or adrenaline as they continue to move through the home, murdering then her 2 babies. Presumably first was 6-week-old Sabrina.
And then there's 6 strikes to the baby.
Followed by 2-year-old Samantha, who was hiding behind a couch.
And she's going to be around. Oh, that's where she is.
Yes.
So she's right here by her little sister's massacred?
Yes.
So you're looking around, you find her. Again, this is
22.
22.
Okay. Where's our note on the wall? And the furniture's accurate, right?
Furniture's fairly accurate, yeah. Where you would have to lean over to draw on that.
If drug dealers were trying to send a message to George, it seems the murders would have done that on their own. The murders speak for themselves. Why take the time to find a marker and write on the wall? Why give George nothing to live for and pave the way for him to rat you out to investigators? The writing doesn't make a lot of sense, unless someone wrote it to make police think it was drug-related.
The goal of all this was murder.
They didn't look for one piece of valuable.
No breaking and entering. No damage to the door.
The jewelry is right there in plain view.
This is not a ransacked house.
After examining this crime scene, it does not appear to be an act of revenge or to be financially motivated. There was no forced entry, there was nothing taken, and George's locked office does not appear to have been tampered with. If I came here looking for drugs or money, that locked office would have been the first damn place I checked.
This is the greatest thing for me that I've ever done on this case.
Wonderful.
To be able to come here and see the inside and
reenact everything.
But if George is the killer, we have a problem with the handwriting on the wall not being his and that 709 phone call that was made after he had already left for work. Either George didn't do it and we're left with a big old mess, or George had some help.
Is there any kind of way when you see it with your own eyes you would ever buy it was a drug killing?
No.
Okay, so we got a new name, Danny, and it's Urta RT.
We've all but ruled out the theory that Marie and her family's murder was drug-related. But if her husband, George, is the one who killed them, how do we explain that the handwriting on the wall does not match George's? Or that he had already left for work when we believe that she was still alive because she called her godmother?
Hey, Urta, this is Danny Smith. I'm with the Miramar Police Department.
Besides, what would George's motive be to murder his whole family? We're hoping that Marie's friend Urta can help us figure out if we're missing anything.
I went to spend time with Mommy after the baby.
Urta, how long did you stay there?
I stayed there for a week. I left 3 or 4 days before. Otherwise, I would be there when the execution happened.
Do you happen to remember while you were there? Do you think you or her mom would have left, like, cooked dinner and dirty dishes out, like didn't put food away in the refrigerator? Would that happen?
Usually clean. Nothing ever left overnight.
Okay.
If Marie and her mother wouldn't leave dirty pots and pans on the stove overnight, then maybe that's a clue that they were murdered the night before. And if so, then George would have had an opportunity to commit the crime. But that still doesn't explain the 709 phone call or the writing on the wall.
While you were there, did they seem to have a good marriage? Were they happy?
To tell you the truth, I didn't see any happiness there.
Did he seem excited to have a brand new baby, George?
No, he was just cold. Like, he didn't look like a happy guy, you know?
So can you compare the way that Mommy was before the marriage, before she met George, to the way she...
Before the wedding, she was happy. She was a happy person. After the marriage, she's become like a sad person. I knew something was going on, but she wasn't happy, okay?
Yeah.
They had a little argument while I was there.
Do you know what the argument was over?
No. Larry said, he was just acting funny.
Okay.
She didn't know why.
Okay.
Why he was upset.
And this is going to be how many days before they all end up murdered?
I would say a week.
Okay. Ma'am, thank you very much. If you think of something else, you call us back, okay?
Okay, no problem.
All right, bye.
She was great. Josetta was the one we were hoping maybe Mommy talked to.
Okay.
Hello?
Hey, Regine. This is Danny Smith with the Miramar Police Department. Are you with Josetta?
I'm with her, yes.
Oh, okay. Hey, Josetta, how are you today?
Okay, thank you.
Josetta John Vieira had a really close relationship with Marie, and we're hoping that she can give us some better insight into their marriage. Josetta's native language is Creole, so her daughter is joining us to help translate.
So as you know, we're trying to talk to as many people as we can talk to that knew the family, that were around before the murders happened.
I don't talk to her before she died, but anytime she come into my house to talk to me about everything because she don't want to stay here.
She doesn't want to stay with him, meaning George?
Yeah.
Okay, bastante conversación que hablan. So, can you try to tell them in English?
You can translate if you want, Regine.
Okay. So she says Mommy came to visit her multiple times, and Mommy told her that she did not want to stay here in the U.S.
Okay, did she say why?
She said she did not want to marry George. She was being pressured to marry him. But mommy didn't tell her who was pressuring her.
She's told that to your mom before she ever married George or after she was already married?
After she was married.
Okay. Did your mom ever see the way George treated mommy?
So she says that she didn't see how he treated her because she didn't see him there when she's at the house. But apparently George had another woman who lived not too far from where they lived.
What?
She said mommy told her that.
Are you saying that mommy knew George was cheating on her?
She said yes, that's why she had issues with George.
Damn. This is huge because according to Josetta, Marie believed that George was having an affair. If this is true, then is it possible that George just wanted to start a brand new life? And would that have been enough to drive him to commit all these murders? Well, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Man, that was good. That was good. All of the day's work, John.
But worth it.
If George Altador is responsible for committing all these murders, we've been trying to understand how a phone call could have been made at 7:09 from the house after George had already left for work.
Hello.
Hi, come on in. I'm here, Mama.
Thank you for seeing us.
Marie's godmother, Helene Mondestin, is the woman that we believe was called that morning, so we want to see if she remembers anything unusual about that call.
What we wanted to talk about was a phone call you received
Yes.
early in the morning.
I was in bed, and he had already, gone with the kids.
Okay.
So the phone rang,
Okay.
and I say, hello. The person said to me, a female voice said to me, good morning. And she said to me, is my godfather around? That's when I say, Mommy. You see? And then she said, yeah. And I said, what happened? You gave birth to the baby? She said, yeah. So I said, then you must be looking for your godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yeah. I said, because I remember you promised to call him when you gave birth. She said, yeah.
Okay.
And then I said, I'm so sorry. He has taken the kids to school, so I will let him know that you called.
Has Mommy ever called you guys at 7 in the morning?
Never.
Okay,
No.
so this was just out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
How many times have you spoken to her before? A lot or many times?
No.
So if somebody were to have called and say, hey, this is Mommy, you would have no reason.
I wouldn't know if it is Mommy or not.
So you have no clue who called you?
Mm-mm.
We've been under the assumption that Marie made that call, but Helene can't say for sure that it was her. Thank you so much.
Good night. Drive carefully.
Okay, thank you.
Is it possible that the woman George was allegedly having an affair with is the one that made the call? And if so, did she help with the handwriting too? This may change the whole complexion of this case. Before the person on the other end could identify themselves by name, she
already said,
is this Mommy?
Right, exactly.
I never thought we'd end up in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. George and Florence ended up here because they went to seminary school and then they moved here. We've traveled to Oklahoma to confront our suspect, George Altador. So we're going to be getting there way before time for them to go to church. They ought to be home. Depending on who answers the door, what's your plan?
My plan is to, first of all, introduce ourselves. We're the ones in the case. We have some updates that we're...
You think they'll invite us in?
Yeah. You never know. Maybe things have changed. Maybe he is interested in wanting an update on his two murdered daughters and his wife.
His whole family. The last time George was approached back in 2007, he refused to talk and requested an attorney. Moving out here gets you a long way from Miramar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whole different world. But we've now learned about a possible motive. All right, let's have good luck, y'all. Come on. And after 24 years, it's time to get some answers.
Hello? I'm looking for George? Are you George? Hey, George, I'm Detective Zeller. I'm the new person on your family's case in Miramar. And I wanted to talk to you about the case and give you some updates. Would you like to talk to me?
I want you to talk to Mr. Diaz.
Who's Mr.? I don't know who Mr. Diaz is.
That's, my lawyer.
So you want me to call your lawyer so I can give you an update on your kid's murder?
I want to know. I want to know about.
So then talk to me then.
I've been advised, to have what you go through here.
You're not the least bit curious as far as what's going on?
I'm not curious. What I'm saying is, if you have something to say to me, that's fine. But, I want everything to go through Mr. Diaz.
But George, this is your family that got murdered.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, so my point is that if it's your lawyer, call him. Call him now.
Okay, sir, don't tell us what to do. We don't want to be harassed anymore.
Okay, that's not harassment.
I'm going to have to end the conversation right now. I'm sorry. Talk to Mr. Diaz.
All right.
I think I want to push you. Consider how that went, you couldn't have done any better. You look like an idiot. And call her, and she's in the background telling her what to say. Ooh, nice job, baby. George has a right to have an attorney, and asking for an attorney is no implication of guilt. But on the other hand, why wouldn't you open the door to hear what we have to say after 24 years?
If you really wanted to know, he would say, let me call my lawyer. I'll call you back and set up a time to come see you. That was pretty cold, the way he handled it. Well, he didn't care. Good morning, boys.
Morning.
Hey, good morning.
Y'all ready to get rid of us?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so there's nobody left we need to talk to, right?
No. And we've done all the testing we can and gone and talked to George.
We've covered this, from beginning to end.
With everything that we've learned, it's time to talk about our suspects. Is this truly a drug deal gone wrong? Is this a drug deal where they just hit the wrong house, right? So what all do we know?
Well, Marie's not going to let him in.
So they would get in how?
Force an entry.
They would be kicking that door in, shooting it off or something, right?
No breaking and entering. No damage to the door.
The goal of all this was murder.
You got nothing like that in this house.
The big thing is that lock the office door. If I'm there to look for something, why would I leave a door locked? There could be someone in there. My money/drugs could be inside there.
And if I'm really a drug dealer and I'm really there to steal drugs and money, what should that house look like?
Torn apart.
And this house didn't look like that. Where do we even get the idea that this would be the house that they would want to hit?
From the wall. This writing on the wall was alluding to it being drug related.
And you're telling me that a killer just happened to find a marker laying around? Is there anything that makes anybody in this room believe that this was truly a random intruder or a drug-related hit?
No.
Nothing. Now, let's talk about George Altador.
Mommy had confided in someone and said that she was aware that he was cheating on her with a girl that lives down the street.
George had another woman who lived not too far from where they lived. That's why she had issues with George.
You're wondering about the state of their marriage and if you have a motive, and here we go. John, what's your favorite piece?
My favorite piece is his ex-wife, the fact about him having a gun. And she and her former boyfriend were threatened at gunpoint by George, saying that he could kill them and nobody would know.
Yes, and now you also know 24 years later, John, when you went knocking on that door in Oklahoma, what was George's response?
He didn't want to hear an update on what's going on 24 years later. It doesn't seem like he gives a damn. You're not the least bit curious as far as what's going on?
I'm not curious, if you have something to say to me. I want everything to be Mr. Diaz.
And now you know he had moved on for this reason. He was ready to move on.
Start a brand new life.
That's right. You know George Altador didn't write the note on the wall. Somebody else is involved. You know that.
Yeah.
There are some indications George Altador did not write the entries on the wall.
So we're sitting here today trying to figure out how to get around that 709 phone call. We can't explain it, and we can't disprove it, and we can't evaporate it, because it is what it is, and it's in the middle of this world.
That phone call has been the hurdle since 1997, and it continues to be.
That is the one thing that is stopping us moving forward with this case.
We've uncovered a lot this week, but we still have unanswered questions about this phone call. We're hoping sometime in the near future, we're going to be able to get justice for Marie and her mom and her babies.
The whole thing of this case just makes me sick, and we don't leave any stone unturned, but this is just heartbreaking.
The only way to ever explain that call is for something brand new to break out, where somebody that knows about that call comes forward. And until that happens, this is where we are. And I don't know, it makes me sick. It makes me sick because I thought we could figure it out.
Yeah.
You thought about what you're going to tell them?
Unfortunately, I have had this conversation with them in the past. They never really had their hopes up like they did this time, though.
I know. In this line of work, having to tell a family that we didn't get as far as we wanted to is as bad as it gets. My heart aches for Marie's family, but they deserve to know the truth. And unfortunately, tragically right now, that's the best we can do.
I guess I'll do it like a Band-Aid. Unfortunately, we didn't get what we were looking for. We got a lot of good new information, but that phone call, that 709 phone call, is that's what we're having a hard time getting past.
I was hoping when we came here that we could figure that out, we could clear it up. But some female called from that house, and we're locked into that time. And it's so frustrating to have these thoughts, but you can't quite get enough to file charges in a courtroom yet.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
It is hard.
It is so hard.
Even more
You want justice. You want the person who did this to be held responsible.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Such a painful wound, though. It's like every time it reopens. It's not like it never closes, but I know I feel bad.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It means so much to me. We want justice, but it's just this is nearly 25 years. We are suffering. We are grieving every day.
It has been 24 years, and every day we are ready for an answer. We are still hurting. We are still grieving. We don't have a closure. We are hoping for that day to come.
It has to move forward. I'm willing to take that risk. I can't speak for my cousins, but I plead to the state to consider a circumstantial evidence case, even with the risks. Because there is the pain that we're feeling to come in front of a jury, so that the jury can decide, even with that phone call.
It's too painful for my cousins. This needs to move forward, guys.
You need to call the state's attorney's office and go have a meeting. And you sit down in that room and you tell them everything you just said at this table today. You have the right to do that, okay? You're the victim here. You have the right to have a meeting and get your questions answered. That is your right.
We're not gonna lose hope.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
And you keep praying.
Yes, it's a daily thing.
Yeah. So sorry. You can't put into words what this family has gone through. They have every right in the world to be angry, and who in the hell can blame them? All they can do now is to continue to fight for their loved ones, and our hope, all of us, is that one day they will get justice.